Hey, good day, everybody. Welcome back to another episode live from Jerusalem with Rabbi Chaim Goldberg and the Genesis class in the Zoom room. We're joined by many people from all around the planet. I'm waiting for a friend of mine from Winnipeg to show up in the Zoom room as well, but we've got people from all over, a lot of the usual suspects. It's always a joy to be with them. I missed the last class. I've been going through some medical issues, nothing too critical. Let's keep me in your prayers, folks. But Hashem willing, the light continues to shine out of Israel, and it's always a joy to be with Rabbi Goldberg and Lee Fogel sharing Brit Shalom. So let's just jump right in and see how the rabbi's doing today. Rabbi Goldberg, I missed you last week, sir, the other week, and it's just a joy to be with you. The class is yours.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening from Jerusalem. Good to see you all. Good to see you back. Last week we didn't have because of Shavuot, and also because of what we had here in Israel, where unfortunately we have, as you all know, the Hebrew nation didn't finish their journey that started with the steps of Patriarch Abraham, as we explained and we showed, we exposed inside the verses. So we started 4,000 years ago, and we are dealing with this along the history until today. Even though we came back to our homeland, we still have from time to time struggle. And there are some, I don't know how to say it even, there are some people who think that we will vanish and will be wiped off from
No way.
But it won't happen because it won't happen. That's it. This is life. So last week we had a very tough week. It wasn't so simple, as you all know. And the most amazing thing is, if you remember, the last time that we spoke 2 weeks ago, one of the questions that appeared at the end of the lesson was a question about the relationship between Abraham and Pharaoh and Abraham and Lot. And I said that this is the main thing that we're going to speak tonight. So I'm going to say tonight, I'm going to divide it to two, the time that I have. The first part, I'm going to explain a bit, something that is running with us along history. And you will see it and you will start to understand what is happening, it's a key understanding for everything that is happening in history. And the second part, I'm going to speak a bit about the oral Bible that we have, that there was a lot of questions in this weekend about the oral Bible. So I want to show something about the oral Bible, but let's start in the beginning, in the first part. And the first part is basically showing or exposing, I will show, let me share the screen just a moment. Here it is, yeah. We spoke, you all can see the screen, right? We
Yes,
spoke
sir.
about Abraham developing into Hebrew man. We spoke about this. Then we spoke about the test number 5, that is bringing Abraham to become what he is. And one of these things is that Sarah was being taken to Pharaoh as a woman. Then we explained this also in another level, that Abraham and Sarah is coming to the level of, we have 3 levels with a connection between spouse, between both sides, man and his wife, the wife and her man. Okay, the first level is the biological level, what we call in the verses, it's called male and female. And then we have a second level where it's called in the Bible man and woman, ish ve'isha, that we're starting to speak in a higher level. And the last level, or the biggest level, is also to be in a connection of a soul level. This is what we call a brother and sister. And we saw that Abraham and Sarah is starting this level. And the end of this level, we can see, we read it a bit in Shavuot, in the mother of David, King David, Ruth, who came from another country, from Moab. And she is saying I'm going with you, I will stay with you, I will stick with your nation. And she's doing a lot of things only in the level of a very high level of she wants to become part of the Hebrew nation. And this is why we call her the mother of the kingdom. Okay, she is the mother of King David, King Solomon, and she is bringing to this world the one that could be the Messiah for the world. So those are the things that we spoke about. And last time we said that we're going to speak about a principle of thing. And what I want to show here is that along history, we have two kinds of, I will say, not people, it's not the word people, okay? Two kinds of things that are running against Israel. Those who are opposed Israel and those who want to replace Israel. Now listen good, because it's running along history. And I'm going to give examples with Abraham, and I also, maybe we'll give also examples with others, but we need to know that this is what is happening. With Abraham, you asked me, all of you, okay, what really happened that Pharaoh took Sarah. Okay, we said it here. This is the verses that we spoke about. And it came to pass when Abraham came to Egypt, and the Egyptians saw the woman, and she was taken she was very pretty, and they told her that she needs to go to Pharaoh. And what is happening here? Pharaoh took Sarah, and because of Sarah, Pharaoh got a lot of, he gave Abraham a lot of presents, and he got from the other side a lot of punishments, and then he gave back Sarah to Abraham. What is happening here is that Pharaoh understands that Sarah is the womb for the continuing of the world. Maybe I will start with one step before that. Until this stage that we're speaking about Abraham, everybody in this world is have the possibility to bring the next step and to bring the Messiah. Okay, everybody have it. And only at the time that God decided to start with Abraham, a new nation that will bless all the nations, this is where the rest of the world are not going to be this nation that is going to bring the Messiah to the world, but is going to bring the world to the world to come, to the next step of the world. And from there on, there are a lot of forces and people, or maybe main people, who are trying all the time to replace Israel or to do things against Israel, to wipe Israel and to do it in a different way. And the first one is Pharaoh. Pharaoh is not trying, we know that he said, Abraham is saying, please say that you are my sister, because if not, they will murder me. So Abraham is afraid for his life. But what Pharaoh is trying to do is not trying to kill, I will say, the Hebrew nation womb, Sarah. He is trying to replace Abraham. He's trying to say, my seed, Pharaoh's seed, the Egyptian seed, will continue with Sarah, that she is related to the Hebrew nation. And from there on, I'm conquering, I'm taking the womb of the Hebrew nation. By the way, we will see it another few generations again, where Pharaoh will say, in the beginning of Exodus, kill all the male, and the female, what is the female? The female is the womb of the Hebrew nation, right? The female live alive, and we will take them, because we want the Egyptian nation, we want to replace, to move aside the male side of the Hebrew nation and to take the womb of the Hebrew nation and to bring it to a new level, or the level that is with us. Now, Pharaoh didn't manage, and one of the things that is being said in the Midrash is that when Pharaoh saw that he is not, he doesn't have the possibility of doing against Abraham, So he gave Abraham his daughter. His daughter is Hagar. Hagar is the daughter of Pharaoh. And he said, you know what? I can't conquer the womb of the Hebrew nation, but I can give Abraham the womb of the Egyptian nation. And from the seed of Abraham, there will come some sort of a nation from there. And we know that Ishmael is the son of Abraham from one side, and of the Egyptian side on the other side. And Ishmael is also one of the sons of Abraham. And Abraham is saying about Ishmael, he's saying something very amazing. Let's look at it for a moment. Sorry, it is. I'm sorry I didn't organize it before. No, come on. Go on. Okay, let's listen for a moment what is happening when God is telling Abraham that there is only one that is going to continue his dynasty. Okay, and let's look what Abraham is answering. Here it says that Abraham was 99 years old. He finished almost all of his tests, and this is where God can tell him, can bless him and tell him, you know what, and I will place my covenant between me and between you, and I will multiply you very greatly. Fine. Now, at this time, we have already Ishmael. Ishmael is already alive. Ishmael was born when Abraham was 87 years old. Now he's 99 years old. And this is what he's saying. He's promising him, behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall become the father of multitude of nations. And I'm changing your name. In Hebrew, don't forget, changing name is also changing dynasty. It's also changing the purpose of life. And he's saying to him, I will make you into a nation, and kings will emerge from you. Fine. And not only that, also my covenant between you and between your seed, and you will get also this country. Okay. And I will give you and your seed after you the land of this land of the Hebrew land. Fine. And now he's saying to him that he needs to do circumstance and everything else. And then he's saying to him, Dan, please read verse number 17.
Number 17, and Abraham fell on his face and rejoiced, and he said to himself, will a child be born to one who is 100 years old, and will Sarah, who is 90 years old, give birth?
So he's, he's very, with a lot of joy inside. Rejoiced. And read verse number 18. Look at this verse. It's a very important one.
And Abraham said to God, if only Ishmael will live before you.
So Abraham have one kid, Ishmael. He's already 12 years old. And he's saying to him, for me, it's enough, Ishmael. Now, Ishmael, again, is the son of Abraham and the son of the Egyptian woman. And from Abraham's side, it's enough Ishmael. And now look what is the answer of God. Read verse number 19.
And God said, indeed, your wife Sarah,
yes,
your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you shall name him Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his seed after him.
And now please read verse 20 and 21 also.
And regarding Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I have blessed him, and I will make him fruitful, and I will multiply him exceedingly. He will beget 12 princes, and I will make him into a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you at this time next year. Okay,
so he's saying the truth is, if I will say it in the subtext of what's happening here, the truth is I never thought of blessing too much Ishmael, but you know what? I heard you. Okay, I will bless him also. But the covenant is with Isaac, not with Ishmael. And this is one of the things that put, I will say, the Ishmael side that was only the sons of the servant. She's not the son. They are not the son of the main woman, but they all the time saying to themselves, we are supposed to continue on the Hebrew nation or Abraham roots. They say, okay, now you're starting to realize what is happening here. So this is one way where he is not trying 100%, I will say, to replace Abraham, but he is trying to say, Pharaoh, I'm speaking about Pharaoh, he's trying to change your things. There is another person, okay, in Abraham era, and let's jump back to our chapter 12, it's chapter 13, okay, it's starting in chapter 13, where we see, we finished chapter 12 and we continue in chapter 13. And we see, first read verse number 1, please.
And Abram came up from Egypt, he and his wife, and all that was his, and Lot with him to the south.
Who is Lot? Who is Lot? Lot, something very unique. He's part of the family. He's part of the family. He is the son of Haran, who is the nephew of Abraham. But look what is happening between him and Lot. He is very similar to Abraham. It will explain to us also a lot of things later on. Why do I say he's similar? Because it says, please read verses number 5 till 9.
And also Lot, who went with Abraham, had flocks and cattle and tents, and the land did not bear them to dwell together, for their possessions were many, and they could not dwell together. And there was a quarrel between the herdsmen of Abram's cattle and between the herdsmen of Lot's cattle, and the Canaanites and the Perizzites were then dwelling in the land. And Abram said to Lot, please, let there be no quarrel between me and between you and between my herdsmen and between your herdsmen, for we are kinsmen. Is not all the land before you? Please part from me. If you go to the left, I will go to the right. And if you go to the right, I will go to the left.
No, it's very interesting. It says here in Hebrew, Ki anashim achim anachnu. We are brothers, okay, kingsmen. We are brothers. We are like one each other. We are very similar one to each other. And when someone is very similar, it might be that he wants to replace the other one. And this is what is happening with Lot. Lot is saying, or this is a question, this is where one of the most important points that we will speak maybe mainly later on, where we need to do the definition. Who is going to continue and who is not? He's only similar, but he's not the main one. Abraham here, it's a very hard test for him with this issue because he is accepting everybody and suddenly part of his family he needs to reject. But this is what is happening here, where God is saying to him, you need to separate from the one who is very similar to you, because you are going to get confused, and it's or him or you. But he is only similar, he is not the main one. And since then also, we have those, I will say, people who think that they can replace us, the Hebrew nation. Lot, in the beginning, thinks that he might replace Abraham. This is what is happening there. If we will continue inside to Rashi, we will see, let me show this for a moment in Rashi, what exactly was the fight between the people of Lot and people of Abraham. Okay, so please read. And there was a corollary. Please read this.
There was a quarrel. Since Lot's herdsmen were wicked, and they pastured their animals in fields belonging to others, Abram's herdsmen rebuked them for committing robbery. But they responded, the land was given to Abraham, who has no heir, so Lot will inherit him. And therefore this is not robbery, but scriptures state, and the Canaanites and the Perizzites were then dwelling in the land, and Abraham had not yet been awarded its possession, from Genesis, Rabbah 41:5.
So the first, the first understanding of the story is a fight between are we stealing the land or we buying the land? We will see that Abraham will buy the land. Even though God promised him this land, he's buying this land. By the way, till today, this is the main thing. I will tell you what happened in the last few days with the Arabs. We have a group of Jewish people who bought houses in one of the neighborhoods of Jerusalem. And the Arabs are very upset. How come you buying land or houses in Jerusalem? It's our country. And we reject you give us money, but we don't want to give you those houses. And this is part of what happened here, okay, in those days. So the people of Abraham are saying to them, you don't need to steal this thing, you need to give this. So this is, I will say, the surface of this midrash. But the main part of this midrash is saying that the main question in behind the scenes of what's happening here is the question, who is going to continue on Abraham's mission in this world? Abraham's destiny, the people of Abraham, one that will get, that will be the son of Abraham, or Lot. Now, since then, if we will continue, if we will jump another 2 generations, we will go to Isaac and Esau, Jacob and Esau. Again, it's happening there that Esau, that from there on, there will be also after that the Christian world. They are saying, no, we are replacing the Hebrew nation. It's us. It's continuing with us, not with them. God disposed them. God said to them, go away. But it starts already with Lot. Lot, his people in his, I will say, family, or the people that are under him, they're saying loud and clear, we are going to inherit Abraham and all of the things. Abraham won't continue. We will replace him 100%. So God is saying to him, please do the finishing. So we have 2 kinds of fights along history that is starting already here. The people like Pharaoh from one side who are trying to conquer, I will say, part of the Hebrew nation, and basically that to assimilate the Hebrew nation inside their culture and to continue the Hebrew inheritance through their culture. And there's another way, that of other side of a way of fighting against Abraham, since Abraham started, okay? That they're saying, no, let's move them aside. Let's kill them. They won't have any kids, or the kids that they will have, we will kill them and everything else. We will replace them. If you will listen good, for example, to what the Nazis said in the Second World War, and especially, all the main things that Hitler said, in front of everybody, where he said there all the time, Heil Hitler, and everybody, all those big things that he said in front of all of his people.
Rallies, yeah.
He said there that the Hebrew people brought to this world a lot of conscience and a lot of goodness, and we need to kill all of them so there won't be this kindness and goodness in this world. Those are the words that he said. So he said, basically, we need to replace them. They need to be vanished, and we need to replace them. Now, we didn't start it with Hitler. God forbid, at the end of the days, he is aside and we are still alive. Thank God. Yes, it didn't start with him. It starts here, where people are saying, the Lord that is part of Abraham is saying, he doesn't have kids. I will continue on. It's my dynasty. He will move aside. So those are the 2 ways along history, and we will meet this with the generation of Isaac, and we will meet this with the generation of Jacob, and we will meet this with the generation of the 12 tribes, and we will meet this along history all the time. Also today, look a bit around and you will see that there are 2 main, I will say, ways that is running in this world. There is the hard side of the Islamic world, not all of the Islamic in this side, that they're saying they're going to build up what they call the Caliphate, the big empire of this is, by the way, what the Hamas is saying. The Hamas is saying, with the Iran government, we are going to build here the big Islamic world, where there is no place for the Jewish people to be there. And we're going to destroy them, we're going to kill all of them. We have the nuclear bomb to kill them. Hamas is saying, we don't care that now you killed a bit of us. We have a long run air that we will destroy and we will kill all of the Jewish in Israel state, and there won't be any one of them. And on the other side, we can find, this is one way, just like Lot's, and the other side, we can find people in the Christian world that they are still sure that they will replace the Hebrew nation, or that the Hebrew nation will become, will believe, at the end in Jesus and all of what's happening there. And everything will become that they will replace back the Hebrew nation. Those are the two things that are running also today in the world. Now, today also we have in the Arab world and also in the Christian world, or those who left the Christian world, people who are starting to wake up and to see that this is what I answered also to people when people say to me that at the end I will believe in Jesus. I said to them, if after more than 2,000 years that we were in the exile and we were spread all over the world, and you didn't manage to change our belief in God, why do you think that now that we are in the Hebrew land in Israel, we will change our belief? Now we are more stronger, so it won't happen. But in this world today, we have also those two forces, I would say, or those two waves that are running in this world. And there are more and more people who are managing to realize what exactly is happening and how God is coming back to our homeland, I would say like that, to his homeland, to his place, and building up the era of Israel. So this is something that it's amazing. If you will open the recording, you will see that I said I'm going to speak about this 2 weeks ago, and I didn't know that we will have this fight in the last 2 weeks, but things are very related. It's not that we are learning things that are not related to what is happening in this world. I promised Lee is here. Lee, are you here? I can't hear you.
Hi, Rabbi.
Shalom uvracha. Lee, I'm stealing another few minutes from you, okay?
The time is all yours. I'm the guest here, Rabbi. You're the host.
What?
I'm the guest. You're the host. It's all yours.
You're not a guest. You're part of this thing, but it's okay. I must show something very important. And it's the foundation of the book that Lee is teaching us, okay? Because the book that Lee is teaching us is not coming out of the blue, from nothing, from nowhere. The inheritance that the sages of Israel is running along history, and I got a very nice question this week also about me, okay? And what do I have connections to Moses, okay? Personally, I can tell you that 6th generation above me were rabbis, and one of them was a very great one. But and I learned also from my grandfather that was also a rabbi. And the most important thing is from the rabbis that I'm learning today, okay, that I have today, that are alive today, and I'm part of this heritage, that are related to the inside of the Hebrew tradition. But I want to show two things, okay? The first one is to show, let's go to Genesis. Let's go to Leviticus, sorry. Okay, let's go to Leviticus. I think it's here, but in a moment we'll find it. Yes, bingo. You know what? This is not the main one. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's go numbers. Look to numbers. In Numbers, we have a very interesting story, okay, that it's saying that they found someone that he didn't kept the Shabbat. He did something wrong with the Shabbat. Okay, we all know the Shabbat. We all know that you need to keep the Shabbat to hold this seventh day. And he did something. Okay, and what exactly he did? Please read verse number 32.
When the children of Israel were in the desert, they found a man gathering wood on the Sabbath day.
Read another two verses.
Those who found him gathering wood presented him before Moses and Aaron and before the entire congregation. They put him under guard, since it was not specified what was to be done to him.
My question is, it says here that he was gathering wood, but there is nowhere in the Bible that it says that it's not allowed to gather wood on Shabbat. It doesn't say anywhere. It says that you need to keep the Shabbat. It says in Exodus that you're not allowed to burn fire on Shabbat. That's it. Never in the Bible you find. Now, on the other side, you see that they all knew that something here is wrong. They didn't know exactly what to do as a punishment, but they all knew that it's wrong. They gathered him, they took him and put him under guard. So we must say that with the written Bible, there is another explanation that was being said there between the people. Moses told them more things. When he said to them, you need to guide the Shabbat, you need to keep the Shabbat and not to do things, he explained to them what are the certain things they are not allowed to do. One of the things he told them that they are not allowed to gather wood on Shabbat. And when they saw someone who is doing that, they brought him to Moses and said to him, what do we need to do with him now? And he said to them what they need to do with him. Okay, an example. This is an example of something that is written down, but you see that there's the hidden thing inside. Something there is missing. It's not clear enough. You must say that there is another, I will say, explanation behind the things that are written down. So this is the whole Bible. Now I want to go to another place. Please, with your permission, let's go to Deuteronomy. And this is very important part. Let's see if I'm nailing it. Just a moment. Just a moment. There is a short paragraph, okay, that it says, it's explaining, it's a parsha that we have. Next one, sorry, we'll come to this at the end. It's a parsha. Oh, here it is. Here it is. We're coming to it. It's a parsha that's explaining. I didn't find it yet. I need to find it, the exact thing. It's a parsha that's explaining exactly how to, with your permission.
Sure, Rabbi. Can I interject, Rabbi?
Oh, yes.
I just, in your teaching, between the time of Moses and Abraham, in light of what you're sharing, I remember you sharing with me about Joseph when he went down into Egypt, and Potiphar's wife, how she wanted to usurp the same thing. And this was a big lesson. And I found that profound, the way you pulled that out, that Potiphar's wife didn't just want to sleep with Joseph. She wanted to be the mother of the dream of the entire nation. And you pulled it out when you showed that to me. You showed this conclusively that this has been going on and on and on and on. And it still goes on today. When are people going to realize? Beautiful.
Yes, you're right. Now, please read this verse. Okay, those verses that we have here. Okay, it's in Deuteronomy. It's chapter 17, and it's starting from
verse 8.
From verse number 8 to verse number 13. Okay, but we're not going to read it all. You know what? We're going to read. Let's read for a moment 8, 9, 10, and 11, please.
If a matter eludes you in judgment between blood and blood, between judgment and judgment, or between legion and legion, words of dispute in your cities, then you shall rise and go up to the place of the Lord your God chooses, and you shall come to the Levitic Kohanim and to the judge who will be in those days, and you shall inquire, and they will tell you the words of judgment, and you shall do according to the word they tell you from the place the Lord will choose, and you shall observe to do according to all they instruct you, according to the law they instruct you, and according to the judgment they say to you, you shall do. You shall not divert from the word they tell you, either right or left.
The next verses, if you will read them on, you will see that it says that the man who is not listening to them is going to get punished by getting killed, okay? But what I want to show here, first of all, there are two things I want to show. Who can explain to me exactly what is, when we have a problem in judgment, I understand. This is explaining that the courts of, the high court, the Supreme Court, supposed to be in Jerusalem, fine. But it's not speaking only about judgment. It's speaking here also about between blood and blood. What is blood and blood? Okay, between judgment and judgment, I understand. We explained in a moment ago. Okay, between illusion to illusion, what is illusion to illusion? Okay, those are different things that are related to explanation of the Bible. Now Rashi is explaining those things, and he is bringing them from our sages and exactly how they understood that. And please read for a moment between blood and blood. You don't
between
need to
blood
read
and blood.
Just read the main points. Yes.
Between ritually unclean blood of menstruation and ritually clean blood, and between judgment and judgment is between a judgment of an innocent and a judgment of a guilty. Between a lesion and a lesion is between a ritually unclean lesion and a ritually clean lesion. Words of disputes whereby the sages of the cities, the judges, differ in their opinion on the matter, one declaring it impure, the other pure, one ruling guilty, the other innocent. Then you shall rise up and go. This teaches us that the temple, the seat of the Sanhedrin, the Supreme Court, was on a higher elevation than all other places.
Okay, so we're speaking about some sort of a high elevation, Supreme Court, that is sitting down in a place, a very important place. And the most important thing, first of all, we need to know, when we're speaking about blood and blood, it's speaking about the relationship between husband and wife on the times that you have the period, and to explain exactly when it is not, when it is. Those are things that also the sages are speaking about. When we're speaking about lesion to lesion, those are things that are related to the Kohanim. We're speaking here about all the fields of the Torah, not only the things that are related only to the judgments or to the judge people that are speaking between fights between people. Okay, we're speaking about all the fields of the Torah. And what exactly we're supposed to do? We're supposed to do, it's very clear, it says here, okay? We need to go to the Levites and Kohanim and the judges who will be in those days. There is always preferable to speak with live people and not to speak with books. I'm saying this all the time.
Right.
I'm saying this all the time. The preferable thing is to speak or to learn from live people and not to learn from books. Learning from books can bring us to a lot of misunderstanding. And I think that Michaela said it very, very nicely on the WhatsApp when we spoke. Okay, when someone said, but this is how I'm explaining those verses.
Right.
I told him, you know what? Go to your belief, and you will see that you also have an oral explanation to the things that are written down. Every book that is written down have also oral explanation. Every book. The difference here is that the Kohanim and the Levitics and the inheritance of the rabbis along history have some sort of, I will say, Holy Spirit, but a true Holy Spirit, okay, that is coming through God, through the prophets, that is holding us to do the right things. Now, it's so complicated how it's working. I can give examples, and I think that we spoke about this more than once also. I can give examples of books that were written down by two great rabbis in the same period of time. And one of the books, the Hebrew nation took it and continued with it, and they worked with this more and decided that it's working with this book, with this big rabbi. And another book that was written with a very great other rabbi is sitting in the shelf, and it's a bit a side book. And you're asking yourself, what is the difference? How come along history, part of the books and part of the rabbis became main rabbis and became part of the main inheritance of the Hebrew nation, and others from the 80,000 books that we have are on the side? It's part of the Holy Spirit of the prophecy that is holding us in the right guideline, in the Hebrew nation that is continuing on. Soon we're going to have back the prophecy, hopefully very soon in our lives. I want to remind us all that the Hebrew nation didn't have, again, they did not have any arguments of what exactly is the halacha for the first 13,000 years. 1,300 years.
1,300. Yeah, 1,300.
1,300 years, 1,300 years. They didn't have any debates inside the Hebrew nation because this was a way how to close all the debates. Since we got to the exile, so we have, very open, I will say, open-minded how it's working. But there is a way and structure how exactly it's working inside the rabbis and inside this heritage. And this is what we're saying all the time. We have an oral Torah and we have the written Torah. And since the Torah was given to the Hebrew nation in the Hebrew language, we have, I think, some sort of a way how to explain this, while a lot of people are learning the English language or other languages, and they're saying to themselves, this is how I understand it. And it's not what is written down. I think I said it already once, this story. One of our great writers, his name is Amos Oz, he was in Sweden at the time of it was 82, we had a war with Lebanon, the first war with Lebanon. And he was called to the king, and the king said to him, how come you dare the Hebrew people to kill people? And he said to him, what do you want? They're attacking us. He said to him, yes, but in the 10 Commandments, it says that you are not allowed to murder people. So he said to him, I don't remember that it's written down like that. He said to him, yeah, it said you're not allowed to murder. He said to him, let's bring the Bible. So he brought him the King James Version. It's written down in the 10 Commandments, don't murder. So he said to him, in our Bible it says, don't kill. You're not allowed to kill, but if someone wants to kill you, you are supposed to kill him back before he will kill you. So the Sweden king asked him, are you sure you have the right version? Now, in the Hebrew, the version is lo tirtzach. You're not allowed to kill someone just for your fun. But, if someone is killing you, or wants to kill you, so you are supposed to kill him back before he will kill you. And Yes, we have in the Hebrew language the main version, and all the interpretations are losing something. And this is where we decided in the last 30 years to start to speak with the nations, and also to give, for example, this amazing book of Brit Shalom to the nations, that people will understand how the live rabbis of today, we can speak about Rabbi Ben Amozek. He was a great rabbi. He wrote an amazing book. And we are, believe me, you can ask also Michaela, she's still reading it in Italy. It's an amazing book. He was a great rabbi. And we are getting a lot of assistance from those writing that he left us. But again, Rabbi Ben Amozek was alive 130 years ago. And today we are alive in a different, realm, and there are things that are related for today. Go and speak with the rabbis who are alive. Don't be all the time only with the books. And this is how we need to read the books and to understand that we have all the time those rabbis who are explaining exactly what is happening in the books. So it was very important to say those words, especially because in the group of the WhatsApp, it was, people came inside and started to say a lot of nonsense, but it's okay. This is why we're here. And this is, I will say, the basic foundations for the Brit Shalom. And from now on, I'm giving Lee, unless you have any questions or something that you want to refer. So Lee, it's your time. You have now half an hour, something like that. Yes. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Rab.
There are questions that I need to relate to?
Pleasure. That's what I'm just reviewing here in the chat to see if there's anything that we left hanging. There's a question here about Lot. If he's like an archetype, if he's like a perfect example of a lack of a weakness in faith, that he was living around people who were sinning, and in time he also degraded in his spirituality, or he was also influenced by them.
About whom?
Lot.
Who?
Lot.
What happened to Lot? Lot is not Abraham. Okay? Now, when you're taking someone that is very similar to someone else, even if he's very similar, he is not the same one. So Lot, what we find, I will say along history, we find two things. First of all, that he was very different than Abraham. On the other side, he is related, he is connected to the Messiah, because at the end of the days, Ruth is one of his grandchildren, and then the continuous of David and the King Solomon in heritage is from Naamah, that came also from one of the great-grandchildren of Lot. So there is a seed inside Lot that is very related to the Messiah. By the way, it's also related, and we will learn about this, about Sodomite and Amorah, that also was part of the Messiah side. So Lot have some part of the seed of Messiah, but so we understand why it was maybe confusing between Lot and Abraham. On the other side, he is not Abraham. Therefore, it's only a seed of the Messiah, but it's not the full part of Abraham.
Rabbi, can I ask a question from someone online?
Yes.
John Riggs in California or North Carolina. He's asking about Ishmael and Abraham's circumcision. Was Ishmael born before the circumcision of Abraham, and Isaac after the circumcision of Abraham?
Exactly. This is exactly the chapter that we showed. Ishmael was already alive before the circumstance of Abraham, and then Abraham did it, and after a year, Isaac was born. This is part of the differences between Isaac and Ishmael, but we're very close to those chapters, so we'll speak about this.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Inside, yes.
I wanted to mention Rabbi Chaim, that Rabbi Cherki in one of his books one of his recent books, says that each one of us needs to ask if we're more like Abraham or we're more like Lot. Are we more like the one who influences, and we're less influenced by the exact circumstances that we're surrounded by, or are we more like Lot? And by asking ourselves this question, we can identify: do we need to be one who's out and teaching and et cetera, or do we surround ourselves by righteous people so that they can lift us up?
Exactly. Yeah. Fine. Lee, now
Good.
it's your.
Yeah, great, thank you. So as Rabbi Chaim mentioned, we had quite an interesting, quite an eventful couple of weeks. I was sleeping here with all of our kids in our shelter every night. We have some little kids, so it's logistically a problem in the middle of the night if there's a siren. So we're very grateful for a little bit of quiet, and we'll dedicate our learning, as I think it was Set who asked that we dedicate our learning to. That we, have higher intentions. So should dedicate our learning. There should be peace in Israel, peace among all the nations, and knowledge of God throughout the world. I wanted to ask, Angela and Mike, you mentioned in one of the past sessions that you wanted to invite other people into a learning session that you do, and if this is taking flight.
At the moment, we're still in discussions. It's just a case of if people are, as we said 2 weeks ago, I think it was, if people have any problems or any thoughts they wish that we as a group can help out, that is what we do. This week, we're going to lay down, hopefully, the laws or the rules for the Facebook side and what people want personally with respect to possibly a Monday evening prayer session.
Amazing.
But that is a group decision. It's not one for me to make myself.
Amazing. So I just wanted to bring it up and to encourage you to keep with the initiative and others in each of you in your own communities, or boost Angela and Mike. Fine. So we'll start off. I'll share my screen here. Here we go. All right. So after a couple weeks break, I just wanted to take a snapshot of where we're holding. We're holding in the last section here what I dubbed man and self, and in the worship of God. We spoke in our last session. We only have a couple of chapters left here, and please God, we'll finish all together. We'll do some sort of celebration. Maybe we'll all lift a glass or something for this. Yeah. Exactly, El Chaim, for the completion of the book. We're holding in chapter 11, near the middle of the end. We spoke in our last session about prayer, I think I jumped a place here. Yeah, prayer being the service of the heart after, while the temple is destroyed, and the difference between individual and public prayer, praying during difficult times, something which was obviously very relevant recently. And also ways how to approach prayer, the proper intentions, the proper motivations of our prayers, both for ourselves and those around us, etc. We left off, if I remember correctly, in clause 7. Okay, so chapter 11, clause 8. A person should endeavor to pray in a clean place while dressed in clothing. Okay, this is quite obvious out of respect. We believe we are standing before the Creator and having a direct communication with the Creator. And if you wouldn't do this in front of a president or in front of some sort of diplomat, certainly we should try not to do this in front of our Creator. We spoke in the past also about other details in this fashion. If we're saying blessings or other prayers, that there should it should be an area clean also of foul smell, even if you don't smell anything around you, but you see something foul nearby, it's probably a good idea to take it away or to move to a different place. I think we spoke about some of these concepts in the past. Clause number 9, Noahides are not required to pray in a formalized, codified manner. The sages of Israel fixed the precise words, manner, and times by which Jews should pray. Noahides are welcome to take inspiration from these practices and to adapt them to their own needs. I'll just continue to clause 10. There are a number of prayer books available today that have been composed specifically for Noahides. Obviously, Rabbi Shirky is among them, is referring here to Brit Olam, the prayer book set out by the organization. I just see here a couple of questions already flashing, so I just want to see if they're relevant to us right now. Okay, not yet. We'll come back to them later. I think James, Angela and Mike, James is asking for the Zoom info if you have it written down anywhere. So we'll come back to it later. Okay, clause number 11. Sacrifices. Offering of sacrifices, whether animals or plants, is not common in these days. Nevertheless, Noahides may offer burnt offerings to God on an altar that they may build, but it is forbidden to sacrifice an animal lacking a limb. For details regarding this matter, sages of Israel should be consulted. Again, we're bringing, I guess we can read it also with clause 12, somewhat related. It's fitting for the one bringing the sacrifice to select an especially fine animal with which to honor God. Right? We're trying to exemplify the perfection of the blessings that that God has given us. Just take a quick look. Where is this learned out of? You may all recall from Genesis. Right, Cain and Abel, and they bring sacrifices. Okay, it says that Cain brought of the fruit of the soil an offering to the Lord. I'm holding here in chapter 4. And Abel, he too brought of the firstborn of his flocks and of their fattest, right, and of their fattest. And the Lord turned to Abel and to his offering. So even though he was second, right, even though Cain, he initiated, but Abel, he brought of the firstborn of his flocks and of their fattest, right? This is like certainly an agricultural society, right? This is like a prized possession. But this is precisely what what God wants is the sacrifice of this choicest thing in gratitude for God's blessing. Right, and this is the cause for God not turning to Cain's sacrifice, etc., etc. Clause 13. At a time when the Holy Temple is standing, Noahides may bring burnt offerings to sacrifice there. All right, we'll talk about the temple also in clause 16. Whoever says this animal is for a sacrifice has consecrated the animal to God, and it is forbidden to use it for any other purpose. There's a lot of laws. I was just reading the oral tradition regarding some of these laws. There are a tremendous amount of laws regarding when a person sanctifies something for a certain purpose, for a holy for a sacrifice, basically, and like tons of things that you can't do with that because basically it doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to the temple. It like belongs to God, so to speak. You've taken it out of your possession. So. I guess general rule of thumb, in order not to get into these complicated situations, probably a better idea not to do something like that. And in any event, somebody should consult with a sage, with a rabbi, when in any particular circumstance. Clause 15, making vows that forbid certain pleasures, such as a Nazirite vow and other vows of a similar nature, are not a practice of non-Jews. Nevertheless, it is proper for a person to be careful about standing by all of his words and any vows that he makes. All right, the Nazirite vow, you can take a look. We just read it in the Torah portion, in the weekly Torah portion, what certain things that are forbidden upon a Nazirite. It's not customary among Jews today either, with the lack of the temple. But in any event, the underline here, right, is being careful about our words. Right, as I like to teach my kids, somebody who promises has to keep their promise, right? Because that's in stark contrast to the saying, talk is cheap, right? As we said in the past, the world was created through God's speech. This means that our speech is incredibly, incredibly powerful. It can create and it can, God forbid, destroy. And when we stand up to the things that we commit to, people know that they can count on us. We build in the physical and in the social sense. It's taken out of this idea. It's also learned out in the Talmud, right? It says here in verse, I think it's Deuteronomy 23:24, it says, observe and do what is omitted from your lips. just as you have pledged to Lord your God as a donation, which you have spoken with your mouth. In a different place, it talks about making vows, and it says that somebody who's very careful with their vows, or somebody in general, the rabbis who speak about character development, they say that one who is very, very careful with their speech. So when they come forth to God with a very specific and very powerful request, so this makes tremendous impact in the heavens. Okay, so yeah, going back to the temple, clause 16, the location of the holy temple, the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, has a very great holiness. Right? And thus, there are many restrictions on entering this site. Non-Jews are permitted on the site up to the area once occupied by the temple courtyard. And even in areas where it is permissible to enter, reverential honor should be shown, since it is a unique place set aside by the Creator to serve Him. Okay, so there's a bunch of guidelines. You can take a look at the Temple Institute. They have a whole page there on certain guidelines about what things to watch out for in visiting the Temple Mount. I wanted to take a brief detour in looking at some of the details here. So first of all, with regard to non-Jews, with regard to Noahides bringing sacrifices. Okay, so it says in Isaiah, it says, "Ki beiti beit tefillah yikareh lechol ha'amim." For my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples. As we've said many times in the past, the Jewish people are like a channel, they're like a conduit for prophecy and for God's will manifesting in the world, but they are a channel. It's a very important channel, but ultimately we pray for all of humanity to come close to God. Okay, logistically, so we have here a picture of what was the second temple, okay, with like Herod's additions. And you see here the massive, massive courtyard. That's not what's being referred to. You can all see my screen with the picture? I'll assume that's a yes. Okay, so what's being perfect, thanks, Dan. So what's being referred to are the walls that you see here with my mouse. Okay, this is the courtyard, and a different picture. It breaks down what you saw in the previous picture. Again, this is not referring to this massive courtyard outside. This is referring basically to this taller wall that's surrounding this courtyard and then surrounding the temple itself. Okay, and basically this is the area. This border, it's basically up until this area that non-Jews are allowed to come, and there are certain areas where Jewish men and also Jewish women are allowed to come. There are certain areas where only the Kohanim, the priests, are allowed to come. There are certain other areas, right? There's like a gradation of holiness, right? And there's the Holy of Holies, which is like the holiest place in the world. And this is a place where only the high priest comes, and only on Yom Kippur, on the Day of Atonement. So a gradation of levels of holiness. And I also just wanted to show you on a modern map what this looks like, if you can see here. Right, and as Rabbi Chaim said, we didn't plan this, but like this is a very, very hot topic, as you all know. Right, so this is basically what we saw earlier, where the right of my screen here is facing east. Right, so if you will, the temple stood here. Please God will stand here, facing east. And this would have been basically the bordered area with the taller walls. There are certain groups that take visitors up to the Temple Mount, to the areas that are allowed today. Jews and non-Jews today are all in a state of impurity, because we don't have certain ways of removing that impurity. But in any event, there are certain groups that go up to the Temple Mount, and they guide you specifically where it is and isn't allowed, and they guide you also, as I mentioned, through a certain dress and behavior, etc. There's also tremendous amount of restrictions placed upon us by the Jordanian Vakf, which places their own restrictions on a lot of things. Unfortunately, also on Jews expressing any manner of religious expression. If you want to talk about apartheid. Okay, so this was just a detour about the Temple Mount. Okay, and we move on to cleaving to God. I see there's a bunch of flashing going here, so let's see if there's anything specifically relevant to these clauses. Do Noahides allowed to give tithes? I think we mentioned it in the past. It's not required of Noahides to give tithes, but I think we'll mention it in one of the next chapters. It's not required, but it's very a proper thing to do, very pious thing to do, to set aside money for certain charities, for the poor, for certain causes. Binding. James asks Rabbi Chaim if the pledge that he made as a Noahide, is it binding? I'm going to say, I think the answer is yes. I'm not sure if Rabbi Chaim is still with us. Maybe we'll take the question at the end. James?
He'll be back in a minute.
That's fine. A few years ago, it was very hard to keep. Some of the areas, took it. Okay. All right, so Travis is sharing with us some of the difficulty in the Nazirite vow. Again, it's something that's not customary today.
You can't close it out properly because we can't bring sacrifices. So we didn't have to modify. I did have to modify that part of it because I couldn't bring at the end the sacrifice for the purity.
Right. Okay, so we move on. We're nearing the end of chapter 11 by cleaving to God. I wanted to flip to the Chabad translation here because I don't know if it's this version of the translation or what, but the English was a little bit difficult to read. Okay, so Maimonides writes here, the quote here in Rabbi Shirky's text is taken word for word from Maimonides in his Mishnah Torah, his halachic law code. Okay, it says that not only the tribe of Levi, but anyone is called holy. But any one of the inhabitants of the world whose spirit generously motivates him, and he understands with his wisdom to set himself aside and stand before God, to serve him and minister to him, and to know God, proceeding justly as God made him, removing from his neck the yoke of the many reckonings which people seek, meaning dealings and other various pleasures, he is sanctified as holy of holies. God will be his portion and heritage forever, and will provide what is sufficient for him in this world, like he provides for the priests and the Levites. And thus David declared, God is a lot of my portion, you are my cup, you support my lot. Right, as I think we've mentioned many times in the past, and I think we'll also speak about this with regard to Judaism's, the Torah's approach to sexuality. Largely speaking, the Torah does not support. Actually, we also spoke about this in this Torah portion with regard to the Nazirite vow. Largely speaking, the Torah is the recipe of the Torah is not for everybody to separate themselves from worldly pleasures. Nevertheless, there are those who feel a certain calling, and we're also not against that. It's not required of everybody, but there are certain individuals that have have a higher level of spirituality, a higher calling, and we're not against this either. Okay, when Berlin asks, when praying, do we need to face where the Kotel is? And do we need to light a candle during Friday evening? Wonderful questions, Berlin. I'll have to follow up. I would assume that the answer is yes, because our prayers are guided towards Jerusalem. That's as it says in the verse where Jacob is in Bethel. He says, this is Enzekim Bet Elohim B'Zeh Shamayim. He says that this is the gate of heaven, right? This is the gate through which prayers rise up to the heavens. But it's a good question. Practically speaking, I'll have to follow up for you. Okay, Linda says take it to binding. So yeah, we'll have to regarding James's question about the binding nature of the Noahide pledge. We'll take it up with Rabbi Chaim. Regarding lighting a candle, I don't believe that this is obligatory upon Noahides. I think this has come up in the past. It's a wonderful thing to do to usher in the Sabbath environment. Okay, Netzach wants to ask the $1 billion elephant in the room question: what is the halachic status of the mosque on the mount? It's a great question. Maybe we can take it after the class if there's any time. We're at 9:15. So yeah, I want to say maybe if we can wrap up chapter 11. we basically read the text of this clause on the Chabad site. Okay, regarding Torah study. Clause 18, Torah study conducted at fixed times and with self-sacrifice is among the supreme values of the Jewish people. Whoever is occupied with Torah for its own sake merits many things. Right, there's much to be said about the study of Torah, but there are plenty of sources that discuss obviously the practical nature of Torah study, right? That Torah study needs eventually, practically speaking, to change you as a person, to change your behavior, to make you calmer, to make you more pleasant, work harder, make you more godlike, right? But this requires tremendous self-sacrifice. Actually, the rabbi of our synagogue here, I was astonished to hear he's 29. Okay, I'm in my mid-30s. The man's 29, and he has covered all of the rabbinic literature, and is not only well versed in rabbinic literature, he's also versed in marketing and is using all the new channels to get his content out, and he's working with teenagers, and he's working with married couples, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Tremendous self-sacrifice. The man messages me back at like 2 a.m, and then I see him awake at 5 a.m. or whatever. Tremendous self-sacrifice. And again, there's varying levels, and each person needs to be very, very honest with themselves, what they can and can't afford, and it needs to be done also with the environment kept in mind. Meaning, there's a question about a man's sacrifice in learning Torah if it comes at the expense of his marital harmony, or etc. Okay, so each person needs to, practically speaking, make their own adjustments, but the holiness and the exalted nature of Torah study. Chapter 19, regarding Noahides in Torah study. There's a difference of opinion among the sages as to what is the appropriate extent to which a Noahide should learn Torah. There are those who restrict study to the parts of the Torah with universal applications, which touch on the foundations of faith, morality, and law that are meant especially for Noahides. And there are those who distinguish between a non-Jew who did not take upon himself the 7 Noahide laws, who would in fact be limited, as stated in his study, and a proper Noahide who was permitted to learn the entire Torah. And this second opinion is the prevalent one, and this is the opinion that Rabbi Shirky holds by, right? So basically includes all of you here. God bless you all. Right, so there's the foundation upon which Noahide law, and it's not only the 7 laws, as we learned in the past, and as we'll learn also in the future chapters. It also includes a lot of corollaries. But nevertheless, regarding sitting down and learning from the rabbinic tradition, very exalted. Okay, we're just wrapping up. Only a couple of more short clauses, and then we'll see if we have time for questions. We're at 9:15. Clause 20, among the ways of cleaving to God is to become attached to Torah sages through learning from their upright conduct. Right? This is obviously not referring to the sages being a conduit, right? Like the sages being a necessary channel. Nevertheless, you have an incredibly holy person who sits and they pray and they study with every waking moment. And there are wonderful books that I wanted to encourage you all to look out and look for and find. Your local bookstore, I'm sure you can also find them on Amazon. Amazing stories about righteous men and women, a tremendous self-sacrifice to keep up the tradition and helping people and in prayer and Torah study, amazing debates in business law, etc. It's very, very inspiring. I tell these stories to some of these stories to my kids, and they sit there like jaw dropped. It really is inspiring. As Rabbi Chaim said, nevertheless, the best thing is to go and be close to one of these people live in person, as much as you can. Sometimes it requires what we call a little bit of chutzpah. It requires a little bit of audacity. You need to invite yourself over to the person's house, or kind of be a little bit pushy to get close to a holy person like this. But in the end of the day, tremendous payoff. You learn from the way they deal with people, and certainly from the way they deal in certain difficult situations. Right? There's a story in the I was just telling my kids story about Hillel the elder. When somebody comes to him and it's just before the entering of Shabbat, and he's asking them all these annoying questions, and he answers him with patience, and he answers, he says, "Oh, what a wonderful question you have," and we have, endless stories like this. So anyhow, one of the ways of cleaving to God through his servants. Okay, and finally, on a practical matter 21, for any question or doubt regarding a person has regarding Torah law, his rabbi should be consulted, and the person should do as his rabbi says, even if there are other opinions.
Right.
Nevertheless, if because we have, and as Rabbi Shirky also said, once you're in the camp of accepting the Torah as divine, there are a slew of kosher opinions. There are the majority opinions that we usually rule by. Nevertheless, if each person needs to basically go and find a rabbi who he connects to or she connects to, for personal, psychological, and spiritual level. And then to hold by this sage, by this guide, as Rabbi Chaim was saying, I believe he said, I believe he brought those verses, but to do as the sage guides, both when the sage guides to be lenient and also when the sage guides to be strict in certain matters. Nevertheless, if there is explicit proof that his rabbi erred, the person should not act according to his rabbi's words. I think we also brought this up in the past. We do not believe in rabbinic infallibility. Okay, each person at the end of the day. Also, I mentioned Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, of blessed memory. He has a wonderful book that talks about leadership, and in each of the Torah portions, he extracts a lesson about leadership. And in one of them, he discussed not leadership, but he discusses actually followership, and that the Torah is looking for active followers. And what it means is that we should never, passively and blindly accept our leaders. We should always have a certain sense of awe and a certain sense of honor for the tremendous Torah knowledge that they have. But we also need to be skeptical. We also need to be asking questions. Right? Anybody who's looked at a page of Talmud sees that the oral tradition is filled with questions and objections flying back and forth. And it's this kind of active followership that the Torah looks for. So if a person has objections, he needs to bring them until at the end of the day, okay, he doesn't have any more solid objections. Okay, so you need to at the end of the day also be able to rely on your sage, right? As you would rely, you might bring a couple of articles to your doctor about a certain question in medicine. But at the end of the day, if he says, "Look, I've seen the research, but you got to do like this," you got to do what the doctor says, unless you're a doctor yourself, right? But at the end of the day, okay. So similarly with Torah knowledge. Okay, holding at 9:20, I think we'll cut it off here. Dan, do we have any more time for questions?
Yeah, I've got time for surely. I mean, I do have somebody online named Ebenezer. He's asking about. He says also, King Solomon says that we should pray in the direction of the Bet HaMikdash. Can you elaborate on that?
Right, great. So I think we had. Yep, I think we had a similar question from Berlin. Was asking if we need to face. So Jews are required in Jewish law to face the temple. Rabbi Chaim, do you have an answer for this? If Noahides are also included in this requirement to face Jerusalem when praying?
Yes, the truth is that this is the best thing to do. I think that I told you more than once. We have people all over the world. I think also Travis is doing the same thing. They have a strip of Jerusalem and putting it on the wall towards the base of Jerusalem today. It's very far. It's very easy to find the ways because you have everything on the smartphone, and you know the way of Jerusalem or the way to face Jerusalem. And this is the best place to do because it says also that this will be the place of the prayer for all nations, and God will listen to all nations who are praying in this place. And this is, we need to understand that it's not just a place. Jerusalem is also holding the idea of the Hebrew, I will say, kingdom. And Jerusalem is a place where it's uniting all of us, all the Hebrew people. And the main thing is to pray to one God who is being united through the Hebrew people who are united together. And this is the logic of praying towards Jerusalem. It's not just, let's pray through a place. It's not just a place. It's a place where it's showing the unity of God.
Well, I'm so thankful, Rabbi. I'm almost 50% of the way around the planet, so I can look both directions.
It's true. This is true. You can do something else. You can dig a hole underneath you it will come straight to Israel, so we can look downwards also.
Beautiful.
Danny, you said you had somebody on the social media?
It's actually been pretty calm. Our friend Roberta has been put in contact with Mike, the McConaughey's here. You know, they're doing their thing in the UK. She's in the UK. You know, we've had a good crowd here tonight so far. We've had over 90 people on YouTube, and on Facebook we've had over near 50. So, you know, it's nice to get together, and it's just such a joy when they actually ask about, well, how can I reach that person? How can I reach that person? And this is where the connectivity and the communities will begin to flourish. And I know that the support is there from Jerusalem to work with and direct. And it's great to see that leaders do step up.
God bless you all. We have another question here from Brian. It was addressed during the class. I just want to reiterate the point. He's asking if it's a must for a Noahide to have a specific rabbi. Right now, he's just watching Jewish literature on the internet, etc. So, Brian, we mentioned that not only is it a good idea to have a rabbi because there's tons of literature and a person can get quite confused, and you need a sage who has received the tradition from his own rabbis to guide you in the path left and right. As we said, there are certain things that can be drastically misinterpreted without the proper oral tradition understanding. So I urge you to look around you. You can also, you can build a connection with somebody, I think, via Zoom or via email or et cetera. You can also email Rabbi Chaim, Rabbi Sherky, et cetera. But I would recommend for each person to have his or her own sage or own rabbi that he turns to, and that also that you build a relationship with this person. And the deeper the relationship becomes, the more specific their guidance will be.
The learning curve begins. Yes.
We have also Stefan from Australia, so you can, if you will dig the hole too much down inside, you will come to Australia. So be careful now. Yes. Thank you very much, Lee. Thank you, everybody. Oh, it's a great pleasure. There are connections between people here, and people are asking us also to connect between people. And it's really nice also to see how people are getting connected one with each other. We are going to be the largest community in the world very soon.
Beautiful, beautiful. Joy. That's just joy.
I have a question, Rabbi. I have about 30 people I give a message out to each week. And
we can't hear you, please, Travis.
Hold on. Can you hear now?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I have about 30 people I send out a message to each week through email and text. Would it be all right if I invite them, or should I get their addresses and send them to you so you can invite them?
Feel comfortable to invite them, and if you want me to send them invitation, it will be my pleasure. I will send them invitation.
Okay, I will. I'll get with them this week, and hopefully we'll expand this class quite a bit. They ask me about it all the time.
Okay.
Having time to come is a hard thing for a lot of these folks. They're not used to it.
Fine. And Angela and Mike, if you want one of the times that you're sitting down on Monday or something like that, so we can also speak with me, you know how to catch me, and we'll jump inside to one of the places, one of the classes, one of the times that you are gathering together, and we will also give some more input.
Rabbi Chaim, sorry to cut you off. There was a question from James, and it came up, I think, once or twice more in the chat. Is the Noahide pledge binding? When a person takes on the Noahide pledge, is this binding?
מה אתה מתכוון binding בדיוק?
אני חושב שזה כאילו מחייב, וגם אי אפשר להפר.
First of all, it is binding. Now, if you're asking if someone is doing this and after a few months or years he decided not to act in these laws and everything else, it's something that he will need to confront God when he will, finish after 120 years here in this world. I have one, from all of the people in the last 2 years, we We have almost 500 people only in the English department. We have something similar in the other departments of people who did the pledge for themselves, and we have a few hundreds people that did the pledge in front of the 3 rabbis. And there's one person who sent me back 2 weeks ago or something like that, that he decided to change his way and to do something else, and he's not going to be an Noahide anymore. I sent him a lot of blessings in his life, and what can I do? But this is something that you need to do with God, not with us. We can't replace it. Doing this pledge, the main part of this, I think I said it more than once. It's like, it is like, when someone is getting married, right? Why do we do a ceremony?
Right.
The ceremony is something that is I'll say, putting some sort of some sort of a framework of, now I'm starting to live in this way. And this thing of the pledge, it's the same thing. This is why we have in our rabbis, those who are saying you can do it by yourself, and this was on the internet, and those who are saying do it in front of 3 Jewish people. So when you do it in front of 3 Jewish people, you do it like all of the sages are saying. When you're doing it for yourself, it's also good step. But this is something that you framing yourself to a new stage of life.
Beautiful. Thanks for clarifying, Rabbi. So are we done for the day, Rabbi, or are you taking any more questions? I don't have any more online, so.
Fine, excellent. Shavua Tov, everybody.
You're here in the chat.
And, thank you, everybody, for praying for us. It's very good. And you're part of us, The truth is that the Hamas, it's very hard to say that, but I will say that. The Hamas want to kill all of you the same, like they want to kill us. But they don't know that you are part of the Hebrew community. You are hiding it.
Yeah.
We are working undercover.
Fine, everybody. Blessings.
All right.
Have a great week.
Thank you.
See you next
Thank you
week.
so much.
So we're okay on. We're aiming for next week, folks.
Thank you, Rabbi.
So we're going to sign up. We'll see you, hopefully, Hashem willing, next week. And keep Israel in your prayers, folks.
Thank you, Dan.
Bye. Shalom, shalom.
Shavua Tov, everybody.
Shabbat tov and shalom.
Shavua Tov.
Kol gadol li.
Chazak Baruch.